Hello and welcome back to the Double Swing. It's not been very long since we recorded or put out the last episode, but I'm going to be away for the weekend, so I thought, you know what, let's get this done a bit early, even though Elisa Masters Espoo is not for another week and a half almost. I think it's a good time to get this done. Joining me as he always does, Yumi. No guest for this one, so before we throw ourselves right into the thick of it, let's quickly recap what's happened so far at IEM Rio. Despite only being was it 3 days in? I think it's the third day now, rounding up.
Yeah.
Half our teams have already been eliminated. For the viewers/guests, you were represented by Tech Girl. Her Astralis pick has already gone by the wayside. And her Furia pick Furia pick is doing surprisingly well. It's her Tunnel Fire pick that has gone down there with them. Yumi, both your underdogs, Pain and 9Z, you keep believing in Latin America, and they keep kind of disappointing you for the most part. Like, they're good picks. Usually feel like, 9Z Pain should do more, but unfortunately not even able to make the playoffs. And then for myself, Complexity going out, considering who they lost to. Yeah, I kind of get it. G2 going straight home though. I did not have that on the bingo cards. Like, Nico, what a terrible performance. I didn't watch the game. I was incredibly busy. I've been busy all week. But Yumi, did you catch it? What on earth went wrong?
I caught bits of it, and I don't know. My takeaway is that people just weren't shooting. Like, genuine, like whether actually Snacks struggling individually, Nico struggling individually, Malbs losing some fights, which is always bound to happen in like his aggressive roles. I don't know. I would chalk it up as a mainly just off event. I know some people are like, oh well, Snacks is supposed to lead this team and blah blah blah. But I think genuinely, just people just couldn't shoot straight when it came down to it. And best of one into best of three, that will sometimes happen to you if you're I guess not dialed in. So yeah, a surprise, but
Definitely.
I guess it's not that big of a worry yet, I guess.
No, I mean, it's IM Rio. It's not that big. It's like the Blast Finals. I'm going to be honest. Like, for me, these are events that are good, important. You love getting reps, but if you have your fluke off event of the season at this event, you're not going to lose sleep over it. You're not going to go, damn, I really want to go back in time and redo my IEM Rio 2024.
Yeah.
Like, that's not what's going to keep you up at night. The grand final of a certain major, that will keep you up at night. But this one, I think for Nico, disappointing, definitely, and there's a lot to reflect upon as to why they came into it so sluggish. But I think definitely, it could have been a lot worse. So, yeah, I'm slightly disappointed that I lose out on points there. I thought I had a good duo locked in. Heroic looking set to go straight to semis. That'll be points as underdogs. And then Mao's still in with a chance to make a run. So, fingers crossed, and I hope the best. But hey, now onto this event. Elisa Masters Espoo 2024 mainly has been making headlines for its talent crew rather than the players attending. So we're going to have a fun time discussing it. We're going to be picking, there's only 8 teams at this event. We thought we might as well just pick all of them rather than pick 4, then talk about it. So 2 favorites, 2 underdogs each. I don't believe we have groups established yet. Oh, we do. Oh, wow.
We do, yeah.
Okay, so we're going to be group limited. I think that makes most sense. Does it even work? Hang on. ENCE, Mongolz. Yeah, okay, it does. It does work. So no, yeah, Yumi, you have first pick. Take which one of the 2 you want, because we both know there's 2 here that clearly stand up above the rest.
Yeah. Well, damn. I don't know whether to curveball it or not, but
Already?
I'm just thinking about whether this team is actually who I want more than whatever. I'll just go with the Mongolz. I'm just gonna pick the Mongolz. We strayed away from them for IEM Rio, and talked about how the side of the bracket they were on wasn't too great for them actually doing well at that event. But the biggest team they have to be concerned about at the Espoo in their group is probably NIP. That's the other team I guess I was umming and ahhing about. And for me, I don't know. The Mongolz always seem to have these waves or these bursts at times, and I guess because this is an event just prior to, I guess 2 or 3 weeks away from the RMRs. For me, this is like a nice little precursor for them leading into it. The same way that I just came from Atlanta and FlyQuest have just been able to win that event. I think there's a lot of ramping into the RMRs for these Asian teams in particular, and I just think the Mongols play fun Counter Strike when you actually get to watch them play. When they have advantages, they play together. They lock players into position. They don't give away a lot of crazy advantages, and they're very explosive. You know, you can get good performances out of Senzu, 910, Blitz himself. And I just think this team has a lot of firepower and they're fun to watch. So I'll back him in this one.
I understand entirely why you're picking them. For me, they're the most all or nothing team I've seen in a long, long time. Like, you're right. When they have advantages, they don't tend to give them way too much. They have a variety of different players who can win them rounds. But at the same time, they can pick a map, smash everyone on it, or pick a map and get absolutely smashed by everyone on it. Just because there's a certain variability to the way they like to play. It's all or nothing in the results because it's all or nothing in a lot of rounds. Like, they will lose a lot of players very quickly going for faster plays. They will take risks. When they go down one man to like push players into positions deep, they get the kill, they hit the shots, it's great. If they don't, it falls apart even further. So yes, whilst there is... Honestly, I'm struggling to think of who on this team can't win a round. That's not the issue. They have the firepower in bursts. I'm just, very worried about their consistency. Obviously, in this field, they don't need to be, good enough to beat the likes of Eternal Fires, G2's phases, the teams that usually knock them down to low brackets, that knock them out of big events. They're facing, Heroic should be a tough opponent, but everyone else, they should come in as a heavy favorite, and they don't face Heroic till playoffs. So, no, massive favorite of their group. Betting odds probably have them or Heroic as the number one team. I think the Mongolz should be the number one team in the bookies' eyes. So, no, great pick. I can't really say anything against it, except for that, the technicality of they do worry me sometimes. They are a little sus, even on maps they want to pick and love to play.
Yeah, I mean, it feels a bit like a Yellow Compass level event, which, obviously went quite well for the Mongolz. They played NIP in that finals. So there might even be a little bit of a rivalry within Group A that could be kind of interesting for when, I guess, we'll see the desk and all the commentators talk about it.
Yeah, that'd be a nice storyline to pick up on. I myself... I've just gone with the other obvious pick. I think for me coming into IM Rio, Heroic were like a freebie of an underdog pick. I said it as much. Like, I was like, you guys leaving me these guys? As well as leaving me Complexity. Maybe I slightly overrated Complexity's odds. I think the pick was good, but here, Heroic have to be favoured. They are in a group with what feels like 3 underdogs at this point with the way 9Z have been trending. So they are almost a lock. They should be a lock to make it through. I mean, I'm sure this event has opening BO1s as well, which can always sow a little chaos, but the way they've been playing at Rio, not just as a team, but the level we've managed to get out of players like Nertz and Dexter, things we've wanted for a while and never quite got, especially at the same time. We've had series where Dexter's actually played really well. We've had series where Nertz has played amazing. Already events where Nertz has played amazing. Just not every event. He's not been delivering, and not always to his highest standard. But here, they've just made playoffs as semi-finalists. It is over. They did beat Vitality 2-0. About as hot as it can get. Sure, they might cool off in the playoffs. They might take a big, sort of reality check in the playoffs when they play a really big team in that semi-final, but they've made the semi-final of IM Rio. Going into it, I'm sure a lot of people had them written off, and I think at this event, they should be fiending for a victory. This shouldn't be a make playoffs, get the reps in sort of event. This should be a take home the silverware and go into the RMR looking dangerous.
Yeah, but they make this, they've made it into the playoffs of IM Rio because they beat Astralis, and Astralis are a wreck with the new transition that they've made. And as well, the further they get into Rio, and I guess this is also the problem with the Mongolz, but I'm not sure how well they're going to handle VP in the next round. The further they get, the less they can reacclimate to European time zones. I don't know. This Heroic team, it actually just should be so good. I see so many starts of... I think the worry for me is that in mid to late rounds, I actually have more faith in Heroic. It's just their openers just look so heavy risk taker, a lot of kind of no contingencies offered up. There's a lot of openers where you just think, what are Heroic doing? And and then they come together with a decent mid round, and maybe they even win the round off of it, and you're just thinking, okay, all is forgiven now. Um, I I just don't know that I have faith in the in-game leadership or Saw at this point to fix this team enough. I I do think there is a weird internal strife on this team, whether it is with Kixan or the implementation of Dexter. The vibes just seem off. Like I don't think they're playing very cohesive team Counter Strike at many given points in any round, really, which is troubling. But I don't know if G2 can do it, then why can't they? I guess.
I think G2 have essentially what NERTZ needs to be. They have the guy who can dictate a lot of things for his IGL, who can in the mid round take over for an IGL, and who can basically find openings of his own accord. Like I don't think you need as much input from other places to get Nico to find openings, especially clean ones, as you do perhaps NERTZ previously. And he said that's something he's had to work on a lot. And also, as you mentioned, and I said this on the last episode, this is why I picked them for IM Rio, this roster should be way better than it is.
Oh, sure.
And if Rio is the first inkling of them actually being as good as they should be, I'm happy to buy this as a real rise. Like, they are a classic combination of Star Rifler, an AWPer who should be a Star AWPer, two supportive / like third star level pieces, and an IGL who's a real IGL, like who's done it before, who's made real teams have success. Everything's there, right? Everything's there. And a coach on top of this who's worked with really great teams. On paper, everything you need to be really, not just a top 10, but like a top 8, top 6 even sort of team.
Yeah, no, it definitely does really help that those third level stars, like Tessus popped off against G2. And I think Shush in the Astralis series also kind of stepped above as well. So yeah, no, those two pieces I think have always been the most important to me. It's just with NERTZ coming in and then Dexter, it did seem like there was a little bit of inconsistency in terms of whether or not these guys could still have that level of impact for the squad. But yeah, Rio is promising signs, so I can't knock the pick too hard. It's just one event here isn't enough for me to,
right?
I guess, completely rewrite the way that all the other events have gone.
That's fair, but I do want to point out they did play Pro League. They made 9th to 12th at Pro League, and whilst you're saying, but they didn't really make it that deep, sure, but they took down a lot of the teams who were either at the level or just above the level of who they're facing here. Like, they took down an IP twice. I don't count that first loss. Anyone else can if they want to, but they won that 2-0 in terms of actually, like, if I'm an analyst needing to make a further prediction, they won that in 2 maps. Like, the first one just got overwritten, and then they beat them again in the rematch. So, Heroic have a good track record against this tier of roster as well. And they looked primed and ready at Rio. Maybe a little Shush and Tessus dominant, which is the worrying factor. That, you know, the final best of 3 they win, Shush and Tessus top the scoreboard. I did want to see NERTZ and Dexter up there, but it's a win. Whoever it comes out of doesn't really matter. Winning is winning. Right,
yeah, that's fair.
Next pick. Are you going with another favorite? I know you're tempted by these other favorites. I'm sure there's no underdogs really to pick. I mean, ignore the underdogs. Just pick another favorite.
Well, you have to pick. Are we saying we have to have one favorite in each group? Is that what we're doing? Yeah, okay.
One favorite, one underdog from each group.
Right, so I guess I'm going with NIP as an underdog. Because
Sure, you sure?
Yeah, because to be honest, they're probably the second favorite in this group, in my opinion. Like, Bait are obviously not that far away from that level as well, but I think it could be very quick to forget that this NIP, where there was a lot of excitement towards the end of last season, and I guess, Wrinkle is unbelievable on this team. I think Maxter as a supportive player, like, people will look at some of the NIP pieces, and there was one tournament that they really bombed out in. I think it was
it's most of the ones they played recently, to be honest.
Yeah, and that's maybe worrying, but I don't know, when this team does, I think, just have a lot. Like, Mistum, I think individually is quite good. Rez is consistent on this team. now that they've refinangled all the roles. I think Isaac actually has a lot of impact on this squad as well. As someone that doesn't always get the most numbers, and then you've got Wrinkled as a star piece. I think this. I like NIP. I've always appreciated the direction they ended up going with this roster, going back to a little bit more Swedish roots, but then also picking up good key pieces, good like scouting to find next up and comers. That, to be honest, they do well to sell to to other teams down the line, I think.
Yeah, I approve of this youthening of the squad, and also youthening. That's definitely not a word, but I can't think of a real word that means what I'm trying to say.
Sure.
Like cutting Alex, because honestly, he didn't do miracles for them, and bringing up their academy IGL is just smart business. That's how you run a team properly. I think that's a good idea. But I'm concerned because Wrinkle, eye test wise, is a star and has potential to deliver superstar level games. Wrinkle, in terms of what he actually does on the server, night in, night out, is kind of nothing. Like 90% of the time, there's the 10% that's mind blowing, and that makes us all think Wrinkle is the next guy. But then you realize series after series after series, he's vacant, disappears, gone fishing. Like you don't notice him at all. And yes, it's great, those series where he's shining so bright that you cannot overlook him. That classic example being that FaZe series, they won 2-0 pretty much off the back of his play. But that was all the way back in August. Since then, this is a team that's lost to Gun5 and Monty. This is a team that's failed to make it through qualifiers, bombed out at Pro League after only winning one game by technicality, really. They have been very deep in the struggle. And so I want to believe in their pieces. I've not got much game tape to go off, And that opening game they have against Bait, it's probably going to be a BO1, isn't it? It is a BO1, so technically
BO1's first.
Yeah, anything could happen. Wrinkle, that could be his good map of the event, or maybe this is an event where he puts it all together, as the eye test would suggest he can. But I'm just worried about everything I have actually had to watch. The theory's great. It could be a really solid roster, and they could have a superstar in Wrinkle. I just have never seen it happen.
Yeah, I think my problem is within this group, the other favorite isn't as appealing, and the other underdog is even less appealing. So, yeah. So if I had to pick one, I mean, NIPR. I think
I think it's the right pick.
The easier pick.
I think in the context of this group, this event, it's great.
Sure.
But I'm going to try and talk about teams that are relevant to the broader scene, especially at the highest level. I'm going to talk about it relative to the highest level.
Sure.
But to be fair, they have also lost series to Gun5 and Monty and Ecstatic. It's not been all peachy. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Now myself, I also have some awkward decisions to make here because I've got a Group B favorite. My Group A favorite's locked in. I don't need to think about that. And my Group A underdog's also locked in for me, so I don't have to get to those yet. I can just take my pick out of Group B. Now, who do I want? ENCE or Rebels as an underdog in Group B? Such great choices. I'll be honest, such great choices. It's so hard to pick between them.
Right, yeah. That'll be the problem I have.
That's the problem. Yeah, they're just so good. I'm going to take ENCE. I don't even know which 5 players are actually going to be there. But based off the 4 I have and the 5 that I've seen play for Rebels, I'm going to take a stab in the dark and say ENCE are going to be the better team. That could be entirely incorrect by the time we get to the event. I know some of the rumors for this team include, there's been talk of, oh God, you've probably seen these rumors too. Who is it? Netu coming in.
Right, yes.
Who is a French rifler and honestly the best thing, the best new French thing in Counter-Strike in a long time. I can be honest. Most of the players we've seen come out of the French scene have been rather disappointing since ZywOo, basically. The tier 2 players who've tried to make their ascent have just struggled and failed. But Nechu has been decent, so maybe if he's playing with them, I've got more faith, more hope. But I can only work with what I've got on paper here. So SDY is a piece who is... It varies. It depends on who he is on your roster. If you expect him to be one of your 2 best riflers, it can work for a little bit, like a little streak, but it won't work long term, in my opinion. And if you want him as your 4th best player, like just the support piece next to the IGL, I think you've got an outstanding gem. Like, he's really good at being that kind of guy. So on this roster, it remains to see who the next rifler is. The problem is that Kylar already is on this team. I don't love Kylar as a player. He's been decent-ish, but that's the problem. He's not been a star really on this roster, and I don't think he's done a particularly great job in like the supportive side of the game, making other players shine. So very concerned about their rifle core, considering the only other rifler I know they have is Glaive. But Pody on the AWP is a guy who has shown a lot of potential. It's despite the fact that he's had to play for ENCE, and he's never had the chance to really play for them when they've been good. But he had, a great run with ENCE Academy, brought them to relevancy. I just believe that this team will play better Counter-Strike with their IGL, with their coach, with the history some of these players have, than Rebels, and that's why I'm picking them. It's not a glowing reference, but I only have 4 out of 5 players to work with. If they get Nechu, they just got a little better. If they don't, and they bring in fuck knows who, we might have an issue.
Sure. Yeah, I think Poddy is interesting because he kind of reminds me of the God, I hate that I'm forgetting his name.
Was it another Finn?
No, it kind of reminds me of Ultimate in
Okay.
in the way that he joined the team, and honestly, the way that he plays out rounds is very calm. It doesn't seem like he gets hit by pressure in like clutch or late rounds. But I think he offers a little less flair. Like Poddy,
true,
does have games or maps where he can get that extra confidence, but it's so rare that he even takes that extra step to get into that sort of flow. And I think that that ENCE really need that as a piece. I don't blame you for picking them over Rebels, but I think it's also maybe a slight disrespect to the Rebels. I think they beat MIBR not too long ago. And yeah, sure, they're still losing to Gun 5 and Batera and whatever. But they play pretty, like, the thing is, the Rebels actually are playing decent team Counter-Strike. I just think that they don't have the depth of talent that some of these other rosters do. Which I guess will transition me perfectly into picking my underdog within this group.
You're going to pick Rebels, all right? Yeah.
I mean, I'm forced to, aren't I? So
you are, but at the same time, could have saved it for last.
Yeah, I mean,
but here you go. Yeah.
Well, I picked the Rebels.
Oh wow, their logo's awkward.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's a little, it's a little close to being problematic. But listen, the Rebels. Listen, I understand that they were brought into a Katowice once, and everyone was like, "Wow, look, new Polish team," and they were obviously only invited to be like a local representation of what the region has to offer, and it wasn't a lot, clearly.
Yeah.
But that said, they have been, I think, pretty pragmatic about their roster moves and what they're trying to do since then. They were a team that were a little bit more like just pug it out, default everything, work your area of the map, and now I think they've got a little bit more variety and a little bit more direction on their T sides in particular. I think, was it Casey? God, I need to remind myself of this roster, because I'll be able to tune into the Rebels every so often for ESL Challenger League, or in ESL Challenger type qualifiers, which they're usually pretty good in, to be quite honest. But yeah, it's Casey is like a main, I guess, driving force on this team, and then you've got like Flay that can come in with, I'm pretty sure Flay AWPs.
He does. Flay is the AWPer, yeah.
With a couple nice rounds on the AWP, so I don't know. I guess I'm prepared for the Rebels to be a bit surprising at this event. Is I guess is my perspective on this team.
Yeah, I have a historic sort of personal beef with Spiro. Not literally personal, as in, I mean, it is personally just me. I don't expect anyone else to agree with this, but I've
Right.
hated the way he's led teams in the past and made use of AWPers and made use of Star Riflers. I just thought everything he did kind of locked players into this weird box that just didn't allow them to really shine and express themselves. And this was most notably when he was the IGL of Wisla Krakow and he was coaching Hades.
Right.
No, IGLing Hades, sorry. It was awful the way Hades was used as an AWPer. On T side, of course, because this is tier 2 Counter-Strike from 3 years ago. The T side AWPer is essentially a grenade chucker with access to a big green gun. Like, that's all it was. That frustrated the hell out of me because I had to watch a bunch of Hades demos, watching one of the fastest, most explosive AWPers I'd watched in a long time for half the game, and then watch a turret staring at Palace in Mirage to make sure no one peeks it for like 45 seconds around minimum, and that frustrated the hell out of me. And I see a lot, not the exact same tendencies, because obviously the game has developed and everyone moves on into the meta, but I see some of those limitations in Rebels as well. I just think they're a bit stiff and a bit inflexible in the way they use their stars. I think there's more that could be done with some of these players, like Flay, like Olymp, like Casey. But no, yeah, you're right. They don't really have the depth of talent to challenge in a lot of games. That's why they do lose to teams like Betera, who just have individuals who can beat you, as well as having an IGL who's probably more modern in the way he calls and more willing to get involved himself as a fragger. That's Owner for you who don't remember the Betera roster, because why would you? Never mind. Just remembered I'm one of the only crackheads who would follow that sort of thing. But if you ever watched Bait back in the day before they got rid of Wrinkle, back when it was Owner as the IGL, he is very involved in the round winning process, let's put it that way, as a caller. And a guy like him, he could find gaps, he could find places to exploit Rebels and just bring them down. So I'm worried about how they're going to play here, but with enough prep and I guess better chemistry than a team like ENCE, maybe they could make a dent. That's something I have to concede, considering we don't even know how long the ENCE roster will have prepped coming into this. It'll be a very complicated arrangement for them. Who are Rebels' opening game? Is it Heroic? It is. Well, good luck, is what I'm going to say, but it's a BO1, so give them hell.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, our last few picks are kind of locked in, aren't they? So
they're locked in. It's not an umming and ahhing thing. It's more of a justifying why you actually love being stuck with these teams. For myself, as my Group A favorite, I'm big on Bait. I love Bait as a team, mostly because of one player in particular. He was on Prospects. I named him one of my top prospects just left in the scene in general, whilst also having an argument with people who tried to tell me what my standard for a prospect should be. It's my show, so I do what the hell I want. Quack. But on Bait, you do have NPL. And there's some other players we'll get to in a second, but as an IGL who also is a star rifler, I mean, I've said this before, I do believe he has some assistance, like on CT side especially, like getting information around the map, other people making like small calls like in their duo setups, because there's no way my outer player on Nuke understands or calls rotations for what's going on towards ramp. Like the Heaven player must have a lot of autonomy. Typically on these rounds, it's also head trick, so I'm assuming it's head trick, calling his own numbers to where he's going to play. But no, he is an IGL and the main star rifler. He plays the opening roles and he plays the rotator spots. And honestly, he's an absolute beast and a completely different player to the player you once saw on Na'Vi. On Na'Vi, he was a kid dragged into the team, kind of weirdly socially excluded at times. That was like a one-off story that kind of caught everyone off. But he's now playing on some maps. He now has an upgrade to the star roles, but on some maps on Na'Vi, he was playing Con on Mirage on CT side, and it was just awful. Well, now that he's actually calling the shots on how they're playing mid, he's right at home. He knows exactly what to do, where to look, and where to frag. He's been a really impactful player in Tier 2. One of the best, not even factoring in the fact that he calls. On the rest of this roster, Headtrick has been far more assertive than he ever was on NIP. That was one of the big things everyone complained about. Baiting. Essentially, It's what he was doing on NIP. He was nowhere near as aggressive as he should be, didn't really get himself involved in rounds, saved a lot. He has managed to find a more happy medium in bait. He's still not too heavy on the opening for Aga's side, but he's far more willing to be over-the-shoulder trading, make plays in mid-rounds, take a few risky like repeaks. He has found a new home, and he has played like a star AWPer rather on bait. So I'm very excited to see what they can do here. They do have a couple other decent pieces like Alex 666, who I think is a good like hybrid, like semi-lurk, semi-support, often rifler. And then the foundational pieces, Captain Kirka and Essential. They have their moments, but they're not really the focus you're going to pay attention to. Those two main guys, though, young, hungry, they can make an upset happen, I believe.
Yeah, they should have been busier this month, eh? They could have qualified to Atlanta or Rio, and I think they had to choose between one of the qualifiers because those events were like barely overlapping, but there was going to potentially be a problem. And they qualified to neither because they pulled out of Atlanta. They tried to do Rio and they didn't make it. And for them, it's then Espoo and then I think Katowice at the end of the month. And then
they have qualified for Katowice, yeah.
Yeah, and then we talk about the RMRs for them as well. So, they definitely could have been busier this month. And I guess it would add extra confidence going into an event like Espoo had they been to an Atlanta or are currently attending a Rio where they can, I guess, demonstrate that skill a little bit more. Yeah, no, I've always loved this, and I know I've told you this anecdote before about like NPL and being a risk on Navi, and for me, I always thought he was, I guess, even seen as like a stopgap for Blade before they found another player, kind of similar to like a Furia and Kai, even though I think NPL always demonstrated more skill than Kai, and was, I guess, had a higher chance of being a surprise diamond in the rough that they could have maybe twisted into something on that Navi team. Yeah, man, he looks really good on this team. He entries, he trades a lot on CT as well from those rotated positions. And yeah, I was going to combat you a little bit on the head trick baiting thing because I still see him baiting a fair bit on this roster, but you're right, it is like a happier medium. He's a bit more versatile.
I'm not going to pretend he's like Adex or some
he's
other
not completely
aggro, right? AWPer. Like, he's not completely changed. He still prefers the CIS standard, as it were, of like, I'm here to, play off my riflers. I'm not here to like go head first into danger. That's not his style. But no, it's a far more effective way to use it. Like,
it's a more balanced view of it.
He trades a lot more players. He does a lot more. It's better. It's a much better set.
But it also benefits the squad in a way that I think, having a more aggressive AWPer would maybe pull away from some of Captain Kirka's gameplay or Alex's as well. They've got a lot of pieces that actually do like continuous movement in mid rounds, and so actually having a piece that can sit a little bit more further back and maybe play off of your contact is actually, I think, beneficial. So it's a weird fit, and maybe it doesn't enter Hedrick into the conversation of like, where could he go next, or what is his trajectory as a star level AWPer? But it works for the team. So yeah, I don't hate bait for that reason. I couldn't pick them and the Mongolz. So
no, that's fair. If they were swapped with an IP in the sort of the rankings, then sure, you'd love to have them. Either way, you'd love to have that team as your like underdog pick to go along with the Mongol's favorite. But no, bait. I'm glad to have them, even if they are slightly, surprisingly like sort of. Ooh, are they a favorite? I don't really see them at these events very often. I do think they deserve the title just based on their online play. I'm really hoping that this is the first of their couple LANs that they come into the RMR LAN ready, and they can actually deliver a real like display of what they are. Like, not just ooh, I'm scared, it's my first LAN in a year and a half, and last time no one had breakfast with me. Like, I don't want any of that shit. Get it out the way now, then play a real LAN.
Yeah, and I guess this will lead me to my last team. I have to, but I did pick them for Rio as well. 9Z, that always had a little bit of a difficult run, I think, going into Rio, because their first team was Vitality. And, there are a lot of teams that I guess were susceptible in best of ones. Vitality were clearly not one of them. They actually demolished 9Z. And then they played a fairly close best of 3 against VP, albeit the last map was a tragedy, but
Yeah.
they did try, and they could have won that series 2-0 really, and then didn't and got demolished. But this, I mean, they have a lot of pieces that can activate. Again, I like the sort of stop-start engine of 9Z in a lot of different maps. I think Nuke in particular is one that I'm very keen on because you get crazy plays from Max and DGT. Martinez, you know, I've always loved the idea of a Spaniard going over to South America and actually making it work. You know, we had a bit of a conversation about why don't Portuguese players do that to join Brazilian teams. You know, I think
they speak
Martinez
a different language, I think might be the issue.
Well,
it's a joke about Portuguese and Brazilian being the same language, but so differently pronounced that at the same time it might be an entirely different language.
I'm sure it wouldn't be that far, you know. I'm sure it wouldn't be that difficult. Either way, I think as much as I have questions about how Buddha and Hwaso elevate their game, because again, I don't really know how Hwaso gets his kills, but he kills a lot of people, and you know, I feel like it's mostly through trading. And Buddha sometimes feels like an odd one out, especially on T sides. On CT, I mean, he plays anchor positions, so he just needs to actually hit that level of output. And they have, I think, good team chemistry, and everybody listens like good little soldiers to GGT and Max when it's in these mid rounds, and it wins them a lot of rounds because of it. So they're just fun. They're just fun. They're a fun team to watch.
Yeah, they are, and that DGT Max duo has been around together so long. The chemistry they've built up has been amazing. Pretty sure I said these exact words last time you picked them. But yeah, Martinez for me is a player who really hope he speaks English. To be honest, I think like this 9Z like roster has to sooner or later have run its course. I don't believe in their ceiling being much higher, so I'm really hoping he's got another place to go because he is like, I think in my eyes, like he could be a really prominent star player on the right team. But if he's limited by being a Spanish speaker only, yeah, obviously he's not going to go play international Counter-Strike. But I do like the pick still. If I look in this group, you know, I've got ENCE, who the fuck even are they at this event, and then I have Rebels, who I think man for man at every position, except if I'm lining up like maybe Buddha might lose his head-to-head with whoever it ends up being, his actual equivalent. Otherwise, you've got them trumped every single step of the way. So this 9Z roster definitely still is talented, fun to watch, good chemistry, all this good stuff. You love their style. It's a solid pick. I just, my main concern, my main narrative, I mean, thing I'm paying attention to them is, can I get Martinez out of there and to somewhere where he can really shine? Right. I've got, what a pick this is going to be. You all know that the notorious ALLU has been stomping the scene for years and years. And he's back, and he's about to show you his balls one more time. Now, you've all seen them on Twitter. Don't lie. Every time you hear about it, you look it up to think, is that still real? Don't I imagine that? And then you see his bollocks there on your screen and think, yeah, that's my AWPer. Jano are the local heroes for this event, as in they qualified through technically a Finnish qualifier. It's just the Finnish scene isn't exactly very deep right now. So they essentially are a hero invite.
Yeah.
But man, is it going to be fun to see Alu playing some Counter-Strike at a real event again? Like, it's been a while. And the rest of this roster doesn't exactly fill you to the brim with confidence. I mean, Aerial and X7, you will remember from the Prime, not Astralis. That's a joke for those of you who know the origins of the team name. But the Prime ENCE that was Finnish. The Finnish ENCE with Alexi B. Yeah. They're not quite the same players. I mean, Aerial does come alive in lower level tier 3 play. Like, he can stomp some of these scrubs still. Despite being 31, doesn't matter. Those 17-year-olds are still getting their heads ripped off. But then Juho and Henu. Juho's been around forever, man, on lower level Finnish teams. It's not exactly he's not exactly a firepower guy. He's definitely there for the tactics, for his brain. And Henu's a younger kid, but who did play briefly on the ENCE Academy. It just wasn't the. Well, she was there for a long time. Wow, but it wasn't that productive. That ENCE Academy squad had a couple good players. He's not one of them, at least from that period. So no, they're not rich in firepower, but they're rich in character. They're rich in history. They're rich in old people, basically. And some of them, this could be like the Polish team at Katowice type moment. They could come out on the stage, let it all hang loose, just play some Counter-Strike, get hyped, and then still lose. But it's going to be fun whilst they do it. This might be my worst pick of the year, as in I think this is the lowest chance of actually coming through. But it was pretty much forced upon me with threat of death. So here you go. Jano, they're going to win anything? Jano, but it'll be fun to see them play.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely will be fun. And I think even if they get an upset, that'll be just interesting. Like,
if they win a best of one against the Mongolz, that'd be hilarious.
It would be tragic at the same time. Yeah. I wanted to do everything in my power to not pick this team, and so I did what I could. I don't know, man. As much as it is like you painted this picture, yeah, Alu's back, Ariel X7, they both had their heyday. Now it's so not. Washed. It's just not that. This is not their heyday. Like you said, they just bully the local Finns, and then they just say.
Ariel does. X7 doesn't even really bully them. He's just in the game.
Does he not anymore? Oh.
He's like on a 1.02 rating these last 3 months. He's not even bullying the Finnish kids.
God, I remember Prime X7, and God, was he actually just so lethal to watch.
Yeah, in that brief period.
Yeah.
To be honest, that faded real quick.
It's just been many years. Yeah, I have no hopes for this team. Again, I think most local invite slots are actually just a waste of time. It would be better if we had more regional teams. I guess that's the other side of it. Is like if we had more regional teams, I think there would be a bigger push for those local invites to actually be the creme of the crop. But there just isn't anybody good enough in Finland. There isn't really anybody. I guess I just don't want the slot wasted. Basically, I guess is my point.
Yeah, but
I think I'd rather it be better.
The problem is like the second best Finnish team, or even probably the best Finnish team, is actually just secretly ENCE Academy, but put Podi back on there, and that's like the best Finnish team, which isn't really that great. But like Miltzi's a decent little player. He's just on that academy. Like he'd make this team a lot better if he came in. To be real, he's a solid talent. But no, it's not the deepest of scenes. So yeah, a bit weird. I mean, it's not like you see. For example, this is why we need like Elisa Masters Prague or something, because then the local invite is a Czech or Slovak team, and those are like solid tier 2 teams. Like if you see the teams when they play in their like Slovak national championship or these Czech regional events, which are they're actually really fruitful, really cool. The deep like the lower scene when it comes to like the Czechoslovak like competitions is actually pretty interesting to follow, and you'll see some good players play. But this isn't that. This isn't that. This is Finland. There's like 3 teams, and none are particularly good. So
yeah, well, it's like for Atlanta, the local invite was like M80, and it's like you could see more of a way which they can.
Yeah, that's justified right there.
Sure. Yeah, but when we're diving down to like past 150 on HLTV rankings, like what are we doing here? And the Rebels are one of those active beneficiaries of a local invites type slot for Katowice. I think in like what 2021, 22. And
it's going
kind
back
of did
a ways.
Very little since. So that's I guess my fear is it doesn't actually do enough to prop up the team.
Oh wait, they made Katowice 2024 through the play-in.
Was it 24?
Yeah, they made it through the play-in as well. Like they actually made it through the play-in and then went straight home. But
am I disrespecting my own pick?
I think you might be a little bit, because they did legit go through. They beat Cloud9 in a BO1, lost to Eternal Fire in a BO3, and then beat M80 in a BO3.
Oh my god, I disrespected my own pick.
A little bit, yeah. But it's fine. It's cool. It's cool. These things that were said cannot be unsaid.
They have caused upsets. I don't. Yeah, I don't know. They've improved since their initial, I guess, hand holding, but it still concerns me. I do just want this to be an event where I guess it's more about like teams ramping up into the major cycle, I guess. But not all these teams are in that position.
No, not all of them are actually playing it. I'd be very shocked if Jano was ever going to make the actual RMR.
Yeah, RMRs, yeah.
It's not like that regionalized. If there was just specifically Northeastern Europe, not Russia sort of qualifier, where it's just Estonia and Finland, yeah, maybe a full Baltics and Finland, they could make it through that. But we're not that compartmentalized. That'd be insane. So no, they're pretty stuck, and that's okay.
But I swear there's like 3 events on at the same time. Like, isn't Thunderpick on it around the same time as this Elisa? I swear RES is also directly overlapping with this as well. So we have 8 teams at this, we have 8 teams at RES, and then we have like 16 teams at Thunderpick. Thunderpick is online, I get it, but
it is, yeah. The Thunderpick World Championship starts the 21st.
Oh, is it? Okay, it's after. Okay.
Yeah.
They did their talent announcement so early then.
Yeah, it's in Europe, it's online. But there's 5 teams to be announced, so hey. We'll see who can be playing at that.
I think the way I look at how October and November is looking, this is kind of a quick little glimpse at how we should expect tournaments to be run next year. Especially the tier 2 ones, where it will just be about who can you get on short notice, because you only need 3 months, I think, prior notice to announce an event that you're running in tier 2. It may even be shorter than that. And every other event had to be outlined way further in advance, but that's the tier 1 category.
Yeah. No, we'll see. I mean, it's going to be weird, especially for the regional events. See how that works, because if you want to be able to get points and be involved in the bigger circuit, you can't just invite people on the basis of nationality. I think that's going to be a bit of a weird thing to navigate. I mean, I said this when it was first announced on Retake the Week. I was like, this is a bit of a weird dynamic for those sorts of tournaments to have to manage. I'm not sure how it's going to work for them, especially if you're a bigger organizer who has a local scene they're attached to, like Elisa run local Finnish events.
Yeah.
How's that going to have to be done? I guess maybe just the smaller events will be like, we're just going to do it and hope no one gets vocal about it. Like, we're just on the same page.
I think you can set discriminators in your tournaments. Like, you can say that this is an event only for this region. I think you're still allowed to do that.
Okay, that'd be good.
I think there was a distinction made that, like, so long as you set a rule and that is consistently applied to every team in attendance, so like ESL Impact, like, those events will still be able to run because they're setting a distinction in that, like, you're allowed to be, you're basically not allowed to be a dude in like any capacity, and that's consistently applied across.
Yeah. Okay, so we might be okay for those sorts of events, but no, there were still some things like that concerned me when it came to like the CCTs, just the smaller events, how they'd actually operate. But I'm sure we'll figure all that out next year. It will be also a dearth for talent, I think, the opportunities, that is.
Maybe. Yeah.
If there's more online events trying to run real stuff as well, like actually being in person, maybe there'll be time for separate desk and casting roles. Because my word, some of these casters in Tier 2 Cups, lads, you might be good play-by-plays and you might be good at running a stream for 6 hours, but your analysis, I don't need it. I just don't need it.
I've been an analyst in. I've been in quite a few conversations with people that think that as soon as we go into next year, it's just going to be like, oh, everyone's going to be eating good, but you know, all those tier 1 events are scheduled so that there's actually very little overlap. So as much as we want all those, you know, people want all those opportunities, how many of those tier 2 organizers are going to intentionally overlap a tier 1 event when they know they're going to lose viewership for it? You know, it's a very...
They have to put it somewhere, though, is the question.
Of course, I know 100%. But it's, you know, how do they pick and choose? And then are they going to look at you or I, or, you know, people that haven't made that rung up to do those events. You would hope so,
Yeah.
but at the same time, there's no guarantees. And I think some of the early animosity of talent to TOs, there may be some favoritisms of this is our guy, and you're not allowed to work with them, and blah 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 blah. There could be some weird politics that happens behind the scenes because of that. So we'll go back to the Wild West. We'll go back to the Wild West.
Yeah. I'm sure. Let's be honest. That was the prime era of Counter-Strike podcasts. Like, I mean, by the numbers, when there was all the talent bullshit as well as org bullshit and teams actually playing Counter-Strike was legendary. Like, I still remember, like, distinctly, like, I'd walk from the train station home and I just have, like, my phone in my pocket. 'Cause it's always fucking raining, obviously. I've got my big coat. It's cold, it's raining. But I've got by the numbers in my ears, so I'm buying, like, a meal deal on the way home or something. Or some other bullcrap.
Sure.
And just listening to them rant on about this behind the scenes bollocks, these guys being picked over them, like this team being rat bastards buying 3 different teams, then running their own cups. Like, all of this stuff was prime podcast era. Probably not the best time for like integrity, fair play, equal opportunity amongst casters, meritocracy. Who cares? Yeah. That's not what good podcasts are made of.
But you want drama.
Exactly. Everyone wants drama. And that's why those podcasts were legendary. That was prime drama season for Counter-Strike.
Sure. And now I think
we're getting quite off track on the show. I think we're going to wrap up the show and then just continue this conversation separately. But yeah, that's our picks. I'll put out a poll. Hopefully I'll remember to, and if I don't, I'll have time when I come back from holiday to do it, just in case I forget to do it before I go on holiday. So watch out for those. And yeah, leave a like if you enjoyed. Leave your comments below on your picks. How much do you like Rebels? Do you think Jano could win a game? Dun dun dun. Big drama. They won.
I know you just did the whole wrap up, but I feel like we should actually talk about like how important is winning a trophy for like some of these teams. Actually, I'm so sorry.
If you want to see that conversation, join the members. I'll upload it separately.
Oh my goodness.
I'm sick. I'm tired. Literally not trying to be a dick.
Fine.
I need to turn the lights off. We'll see you in the next one. And yeah, maybe we'll record that conversation.